The GoPro Smart Remote was a seriously handy way to wirelessly control a GoPro camera, or several GoPro cameras simultaneously for that matter, although it isn't actually compatible with GoPro's latest flagship, the Hero 9. In order to fix that, GoPro introduced a new, refined and more efficient unit simply called the Remote. Like the Smart Remote before it, the Remote is a waterproof, smartwatch-sized accessory that can be strapped to your wrist, handlebar or gear and helps you control your GoPro from up to 200 feet away. Although this time it carries a slightly different design. The concept is the same. It lets you change most functions from afar, including the shooting mode, so you can safely record the action without being in the thick of it. In typical GoPro fashion, we have an oversized external box containing very little inside, namely the remote unit itself, a Velcro wrist strap, and a standard USB to Type-C cable used to charge the built-in battery. The remote brings a slightly different design to its predecessor, with a rubberized feel ensuring it doesn't slip out of your hand, with a solid overall construction and that premium finish we've come to expect from GoPro. Whereas the Smart Remote carried all functions on the top face, this time round we have a slightly different button placement. One big raised record button on the face, and the mode and settings buttons being pushed to the side of the device with a single power button on the very top. In effect, one extra button over the predecessor. The shutter button is nice and large, perfect for use even with heavily gloved hands, and all carry a nice tactile click when pressed. You do need to be quite firm and precise with button presses though, which isn't such a bad thing since you shouldn't experience any accidental presses. Otherwise, we find a single USB Type-C port covered by a rubber flap on the opposite end, used alongside the included charging cable to charge the built-in battery, which should last much longer than the predecessor, since this time round GoPro opted to use low-power Bluetooth instead, which improves not only battery life of the remote, but also the camera connected to it, and in addition it also improves the pairing process too. Nevertheless, above the shutter button we find a nice, large, high-resolution display making it easy to check camera status, along with a small status LED indicator just above, while on the rear we find a point to attach a wrist strap or lanyard, as well as a slot for inserting the included Velcro strap, meaning you can now attach the remote to your wrist or any other gear. All in all, we have a rugged design that feels rather robust in the hand, understandable considering it accompanies a rugged action camera. Now the unit is waterproof to 16 meters, although don't expect to control your camera while submerged. The signals won't travel through water anyway. Above all else, I don't know how much I'd trust that flimsy rubber tab that covers the charging port. The odd splash won't faze it though, so perfect for use around the pool for instance. Upon switching the unit on with a single tap of the power button, we are shown current battery status before being presented with the main settings menu. At this point we prepare the camera for pairing, so with the GoPro powered up, swipe down to enter the dashboard, after which we swipe left and enter the connections menu, in order to connect a new device, of course selecting the remote option to connect to. Now we're ready to hit the shutter button on the remote to select the pairing option, and within seconds we are connected. That's really all there is to it. Thanks to that Bluetooth link, the connection process is really rather quick, much more so than the previous Smart Remote. From here we receive the same status information we usually find displayed on the camera, so the amount of time remaining on the current memory card, battery status, the current shooting mode along with the number of clips taken, and the current active preset with its shooting settings. The screen itself is nice and clear thanks to its higher resolution than before, although I do wish it was backlit. Yes, I appreciate this would consume more battery power, although it would have been nice to have the option to switch the backlight on and off when and if the need ever arose. Nevertheless, from here operating the camera is a simple process. The mode button on the side of the remote cycles between your main shooting modes, while the button just above provides the ability to change the current active preset. So with the preset menu active, use the side buttons to move up and down, and the shutter button to select your chosen preset. It's as simple as that. With your mode and preset now chosen, hit the large shutter button to start and stop capture. There's really not much more you can do with the remote. You can't enter presets and change individual settings such as resolutions and frame rates for instance, so it's really important you have your camera dialed in the way you want it before you head out to capture your footage. The remote will simply let you switch between modes and presets, and then capture the content. That's not such a bad thing. It means that while you're in the action, there's no settings to fumble about with, simply switch your preset and off you go. And originally introduced with the Hero 4, while recording, tap the mode button at any time to add highlights for easy point of reference while editing later. Range is rather good, rated up to 60 meters, although that's in optimal conditions with direct line of sight. But throughout testing, I've had no issues with connectivity or range at all. Finally, we are able to enter the settings menu by tapping the power button on the top, and here we can pair an additional camera, bearing in mind you are able to control up to 5 cameras, although the new remote allows the ability to control each camera individually as well as simultaneously too. Beneath this we have an orientation menu, providing the ability to change the screen orientation depending upon how you wish to mount your remote. So a landscape orientation would be better suited to a wrist mount, for instance, ensuring the screen is always the right way up for your usage. Otherwise, a language menu lets you choose from a large variety of different language options. And finally, we have a reset option, and that finishes off the remote settings menu. In order to power off the camera between shooting sessions, just as you would generally keep the mode button on the camera itself pressed, it's the same with the remote. So keep the mode button pressed, and the camera will switch off. This does not power down the remote though. Bear in mind the remote does have a long battery life thanks to the efficient Bluetooth link, so it stays powered, and with a tap of the shutter button at any time, the camera powers back on, although with a little delay, in fact around 20 seconds or so. Nevertheless, this means you can save your camera battery by switching it off when not in use, but still be ready to remotely power it on and start shooting relatively easily, albeit with that slight delay. So, in order to switch the camera off, we keep the side mode button pressed, and to switch off the remote completely, we keep the remote's own power button pressed. So bear in mind the top power button is for the remote only. And we reverse the process to power up. So start with powering up the remote, and then press the shutter button to power up the camera. Again, there's a delay while the connection is re-established, and it looks as though nothing has even happened at first. But it does eventually get there, and soon after the camera is ready for use. The delay can get a little annoying and means you could miss an important shot, so it's not to be used in a rush. But even so, the convenience factor is great and the connection is rather reliable once established. And that's all there really is to GoPro's new remote. Waterproof, wearable, and mountable, the remote feels tough and robust thanks to the use of premium quality materials, which we would expect for its price point. The Bluetooth low energy seems to be working well for providing maximum battery life and easy pairing with your camera too, while the large glove-friendly tactile buttons make recording and changing presets and switching camera functions a quick and easy process. Even easier thanks to the large and higher resolution display, although I do wish there was a backlight option. Yes, you can't delve into camera options and settings with the remote, but that defeats its purpose, which is to quickly and easily switch modes and shoot the action. With properly dialed in camera presets, the remote is a very handy addition to the Hero 9, and although it's a rather expensive accessory, it's a rather useful one at that.